Hey, what's up? Gaia here with this rather important announcement. Also this bird orb, but I'll get to that in a bit. Unless you follow my Twitter, in which case you might have an idea already. Well, it certainly has been a rather busy time in my life. Well, busier. I've been working with my current employer for over a year now. I've been working on Final Fantasy XIV videos here. Working on art and writing on the off times, and I have things like finally moving out of my father's house on the near horizon. Certainly the pandemic has been a very busy one, and that's not even counting the month I lost dealing with the illness in earnest. One thing that it has allowed me, in a way or two, has been to think and ponder more about who I am, where I am, and where I'm going. Now, I'll save some of the heavier bits for another time, but the purpose of this video is to announce one thing in particular. A thing that I've been wondering for a very long time if I should even ever do, and also gave a recent warning about on said Twitter account, that I feel like now is probably one of the more opportune times to finally commit to. Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone else, I'm rebranding. To start this all off, what do I mean by that? Well, the most concise way to answer that is to just say that I'm changing my name. GaiaMaiden will soon be going away, and a new name will be taking its place on all places on the internet. YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and whatever else I'm active in. Now, in the event that this comes out of left field for some, I'd like to note that this has been something I've considered doing for years now. At the very latest being around the time when I publicly came out as transgender, which was, when was that again? 10 years? Holy shit! So yeah, it's been a bit. But in regards to that, a big reason why I held off for the longest time on committing to such a thing was the response that I got from said coming out. Now, for the record, the response that I got from the announcement video that I put up at the time was honestly very tame compared to the fears I had over it anyways. That being said, it did predictably result in a lot of confusion at the time, and it was one of a number of items that I attributed to the eventual stalling out of my growth on YouTube. Now, granted, things like medical school and the mental state that I found myself in following my time there likely had a far greater impact than what I just mentioned, but I felt like changing my name around that period of time would have only further added to everything, and I just elected to keep on with my current name as a result. Countless people at that point knew me as GaiaMaiden, and I didn't really feel comfortable jeopardizing that. To say nothing of the fact of my personal attachment to the name itself, which, since it is getting a retirement of sorts, I should talk about the background of said name, which kind of goes into why I'm finally changing off of it. Now, truth be told, GaiaMaiden is actually the second online name that I ever made. The first one was for an AOL email account that one of my uncles helped set up way long ago. However, for one, it was basically just the name of my favorite Zoid from the animated show at the time, with some numbers attached, so it wasn't exactly what I would call original. The bigger problem, however, is that one word that was part of said name apparently put me directly on the listing of a porn spam bot back in the day. If you can guess what Zoid I named myself after in the comments, I don't know, just shout you on Twitter, I guess, or here. Now, this was so long ago, I don't even fully remember when it happened. But I do know that I didn't have much in the way of access to the internet in any capacity till I was about 12 years old. Now, somewhere in that point in time, for some reason I decided to make an account on the old Nintendo Insider forums. Honestly, I couldn't tell you why, but I do remember thinking the ranking system was cool, and I do have a healthy number of Nintendo Power magazines, so that was probably related to it. Anyways, one of the obvious first things I had to do in order to get onto the forums in the first place was to make a name. Now, at this point, I was super into Yu-Gi-Oh! And I've always been a bit of a sucker for Greek mythology and honestly, I still kind of am now to this day. So the one thing I wanted to do was to name myself Gaia. Because Gaia, the Fierce Knight, was cool, and Gaia also means Earth, and is one of the Titans of Eld, so... So where did the rest of the name come from? Well, keep in mind at the time, I was a 12-year-old boy who was doing the typical 12-year-old boy things, and I wanted to make myself sound as cool as my young mind could possibly imagine. Crusher was what I eventually came up with. Earth Crusher, in essence. What about the 9 then? Well, honestly, the website suggested that I end my name with a number, and 9 felt like the number that best rolled off the tongue at the time. It wasn't my age, it wasn't a year, it was just... there. And thus, Garricushion 9 was born. And almost immediately went dormant because I was too nervous to interact with anyone. Now, fast forward to about late middle school, early high school, when my closest friend at the time, who you guys know on here and in various other places as Power to Mario, first introduced me to an IRC chat room called Shadow Mario 41's Trivia HQ, which is just another familiar name from my past if any of you kept up with the Crystal Star Studio. Now, a lot of these people were active on the Insider forums, at least while the forums were still around, and in fact, my first interactions with them happened on that very website too. Assuming I'm remembering things correctly. Now, at this point, I had another name made up because I felt in comparison that Garricushion 9 was... childish? Granted, said name was for my Xbox 360 account, if that gives you any indication at all. However, since I became active on my foreign name in the environment, I decided to just carry that over instead, which led into it being used as my name for my YouTube account when the various members of said chat room introduced me to the world of Let's Plays and encouraged me to try it myself. The rest was history. I kept up with the name, which was convenient since Gaia was a more feminine name than the alternative, and then I had those concerns that I brought up earlier, which kept me from changing off of it at all. So the next question is, what changed? Well, to start, I feel like my channel has had a shift of sorts. Now, this certainly hasn't been a sudden one, but my channel has been almost exclusively a Final Fantasy XIV channel for the past year or so, as opposed to its original inception as a Let's Play channel. Back then, my very first instance I had in mind as a brand was just being a person that was being both helpful in finding items or using strategies, but also being free with my language, which led to a lot of F-bombs. Too many, honestly. That eventually shifted to just showing off games that I really enjoyed and wanted people to see more of. Chibi Robo and even just Hat in Time, as recent as that was, are bigger such examples. I did my best to tone down my language along the way, but otherwise just kept going with things as I had been before, especially after the work I did with Crystal Star Studios. This leads to what I consider the biggest downtime for my channel, which was the aforementioned time while I was in medical school and the few years following. The former severely limited the time I could invest into the channel, and the latter found my motivation almost entirely sapped between the life situation I found myself in, as well as the ever-present issues with copyright issues involving music with certain games. In particular, the LEGO Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings games left quite the sour taste in my mouth given the issues I had with both projects. The only thing that really kept my channel on life support at the time was the upcoming Shadowbringers expansion for Final Fantasy XIV. While my videos for the prior expansions, predominantly Stormblood I suppose, would always peter out at some point, I genuinely enjoyed recording my progress through the main story scenario from the Stormblood story, and I wanted to be able to repeat that with the coming one. Initially, that was likely all I really had planned out. But then the Shadowbringers story happened, and for the sake of viewers not interested in the game, I'll save my gushing over it for another day. But, and I will admit that this next statement is very melodramatic, I feel like it kind of saved my creative spark from making videos. Hell, it even finally motivated to finally get into writing and art. Well, seriously, anyways. But on top of that, it gave me a rather critical reframing of things. One that answers a question that I've seen on some of my recent videos asking along the lines of, how do I keep going on making videos despite the lack of growth for my channel? See, I genuinely enjoy my time with my friends, and those within my raid group especially. And I found myself going back to my older videos periodically at the time to relive old moments with my friends, both those still present in my life and not. I started seeing my videos in FF14 as a kind of digital scrapbook, and I wanted to, and still want to, keep going to be able to preserve more of these precious memories. There might come a time when we all have to eventually part, so I want to make and keep as many of these good memories around as possible when that time finally comes. Now, I know I can get very excited in my videos, but I have also tried to have a more chill and relaxed mood, though this covers places more like Discord and Twitch chatting than my actual videos. Still, if God willing I do ever go back to Let's Plays or otherwise expand my video content making, that's the kind of vibe I want to go for nowadays. A nice chill spot where someone can relax and feel safe or better or what have you. In fact, in more public spaces, that's the person I've been trying to more become. One that makes someone feel better or safer the moment I pop up. Kind of like the first light of a new day. If that makes any sense, that is. Now, these thoughts and more have made me kind of realize that I've definitely changed to some extent the kind of person that I am online and in real life, as opposed to how I carried myself in the past. And certainly my efforts to improve myself and keep trying to carry myself forward despite everything going on have borne some rather amazing fruit, both online and in real life, if my current decently paying day job is any indication. Of course, I still have a long way to go in certain respects, things I won't bring up here if only to not bring down the mood too much. But in short, I do feel like I give off a different vibe to myself than I have in the past, and I want to change things up with my identity online to better reflect that. So, with all that said and done, we come back to the present and the question of the hour. What's the new name? Well, it's this! GaiaMaiden! Yeah, I know, not much of a change. In fairness, though, I never did say it was going to be a radical one. At this point, I've gotten very comfy with being called Gaia online, so I wanted to keep that much at least. And if this name somehow feels familiar to some of you out there, it's because it's a name that I've actually been using in a number of places already. I genuinely did try to consider other names, even ones without Gaia, as my FF14 experience has kind of steered me towards taking on motifs related to dawns and the sun. But in the end, I couldn't really think of anything better than GaiaMaiden. In fact, this was actually the name that I initially considered swapping to when I had the thought all that time ago. Something a bit more radical in change, however, is this little owl creature that's been talking to you for the past few minutes. I'll admit, I'm a bit of a sucker for all those YouTube models out there, and I put a lot of genuine thought into, well, what mine would look like. And I went and made it. Behold, Owltum! Wow, look at that. But wait, why an owl? Honestly, it all started because of a random tweet a good long time ago that started a thought process out in my head, and I feel like owls are a good fit for me nowadays. And I don't just mean that because I've kind of accepted the fact that I'm a night owl. Now, just in an effort to temper expectations, right now I don't see myself suddenly becoming a massive VTuber or streamer or what have you. My current job keeps me very busy during the week, to the point that I usually can only work on creative stuff like videos and art and everything else on just the weekends. It's a pleasant enough job and one that provides for my needs at the moment, especially medical. So I'll likely continue on with it and the pattern that I have been doing of content creation on the weekend from the time being. Streaming especially is a big question mark for me since, one, I know a lot of friends now that stream, and two, I tend to keep myself very busy in the off time. And 3, not to mention, I'm a mod on 2 different Twitch streams besides. Go check these guys out, by the way, they're very neat. However, I thought for the longest time that I was going to grow up to be an endocrinologist, and look how that turned out. Which is a convoluted way of saying that things change, and maybe one day they'll change in a way that gives me more leeway to do these kinds of things. Who knows? Now, for the time being, I only have this cute little board prepared, though I only intend to use her on kind of smallish announcement or talking things like, well, right now. Maybe someday down the road I can find the time to make assets for actual Altum instead of this little chibi thing here. But as it stands, this is all that I have that I've made on my own anyways. Maybe someday you might see more though. However, that doesn't mean I'm going to be getting rid of all of the stuff from before. Though, when I say all, that doesn't really include a whole lot, and one thing that's definitely safe for the time being is the little cat sun that has long decorated my channel. You might see it again at some point down the road. That cute little thing ain't setting quite yet. But the rest is getting shelved, which isn't terribly much considering that all my icons and such outside of the cat sun have been just, well, me, I guess. But yes, with this video, it is my intention to change my online name wherever I can to GaiaMaiden, including but not limited to here on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Those are the big 3 that I have in mind at the moment, but I'm sure there are other spots I'll have to deal with too. And I will be doing so as of this video. Hi! But honestly, not much else is changing at the moment. Much like going through my transition, I'll still be the same me as before, so don't expect this channel to simply turn on its head design-wise. That being said, I've already altered my scheduling a bit to give myself more time to work on art and writing endeavors, so video uploads might slow down from time to time. If this is news to you, I made the announcement on Twitter a while ago, and I would highly recommend following said account, if only because that's where I tend to put up news about my content and other such decisions I make. I've also started doing video editing for a guy called Zyros, who you can readily find on Twitch, and I will put a link to his channel below if you're curious. He's a Final Fantasy XIV streamer, but does a large variety of, well, variety streams as well. And he's a very chill and cool guy, and I highly recommend him. But yes, occasionally I will have to spend my video editing time to work on stuff for him, which can be found on the Zaibatsu YouTube channel as well. Check that out too if you've got the time. But that's about all I really have to talk about for the time being, so I'll let you guys get back to your own business. I hope to see you guys again soon in my upcoming videos. I appreciate all the support that everyone has given me over these various years. And I wish you all a good and happy whatever point in time of day it is. Take care.